In May 2009, I had just ended a nearly 3-year relationship. We had moved from Calgary to Toronto, and since we didn't know many people in the city yet, we were stuck living together after the breakup. Naturally, the situation was quite stressful and uncomfortable. So, when a friend from school suggested a camping and fishing weekend, I seized the opportunity without hesitation. He grew up in an area about an hour from Toronto called Silver Pine, a place of extreme beauty, filled with dense forests, farm fields, and small rivers and streams. We decided to camp and fish along a creek called Grindstone, near some wetlands where the fishing promised to be excellent. We set up our camp in a field that seemed to belong to a farm, surrounded by a lovely forest. The night was spent fishing, chatting, and enjoying some quality craft beers. As it got darker, we made a bonfire and roasted potatoes and hot dogs. It was undoubtedly a pleasant night. We retired shortly after midnight, sharing a tent. My friend fell asleep before me, while I stayed awake playing on my phone until around 1:30 a.m. I was awakened by a sharp, irritating noise, something akin to a whine. Half groggy, it took me a while to fully wake up. The noise was incessant and sounded like a strange coyote. I tried to ignore it, but it seemed to be getting closer. Eventually, it sounded no more than 10 feet from the tent. This started to unsettle me. Although I knew coyotes weren't large and generally harmless, what if this one was rabid or drawn by our food? I suffer from a fairly severe anxiety disorder, so I tend to worry more than usual. I nudged my friend to see if he was awake. The noise had also woken him up. We discussed what to do, as we hadn't brought anything to scare off creatures, not even a toy weapon. Finally, he decided to use the flashlight and shout, hoping to scare whatever it was away. He opened the tent, and I watched him shine the flashlight into the darkness. What happened next will never leave my memory. Suddenly, his legs buckled, and he stumbled backward into the tent with a look of utter bewilderment. "It's not a coyote," he stammered. "It's a guy, a strange guy." Normally, I would think he was joking with me, but I had never seen anyone so scared. I knew he was serious. The strange noise continued, and in hindsight, it really didn't sound like a coyote. My friend insisted I look through the tent opening to make sure he wasn't going crazy. With my heart racing and suffering from an anxiety attack, I peeked out. After my eyes adjusted, I saw the man. He was only a few yards away, swaying slightly, wearing a baseball cap, and, to our utter horror, dressed in women's lingerie. It was at that moment that I realized something was very wrong with him. After retreating back into the tent, my friend and I discussed what to do. We decided to shout at the man to leave. "Excuse me, can you go away? We're trying to sleep here," my friend shouted. The noise ceased, and then we heard footsteps running towards our tent. He stopped right outside, but we wasted no time and started shouting again. "Seriously, go away. We have phones here, and we'll call the police if you don't leave now." With that, we heard him retreating towards the road. Needless to say, we stayed awake, petrified, until the first sign of light, and then we ran out of there. On the way back, we talked about what had happened, both embarrassed that we had been so scared. Because of this embarrassment, we hardly spoke about that night since. I will always wonder what that man was doing out there and what was wrong with him. Sometimes, I wonder if things would have been different if we were women, not that he was a serial killer, but it seemed like he was testing who was inside that tent. I guess I'll never know, and in a way, I'm relieved about that. I grew up in a wooded area in the United States, specifically in Maplewood, a quiet region of Virginia. Our small community was located at the end of a dead-end street, more than 10 miles from the nearest town. There were only 7 houses in the neighborhood, all scattered on lots of over 2.5 acres, surrounded by dense forests. There were no large wild animals in the area. Bears or similar creatures were virtually non-existent, and rarely did people get lost or show up there without a reason. During the 20 years I lived there, there had never been an incident with strangers or lost wild animals, which made what happened even more unusual. I was a girl in early adolescence, with a close friend, Jason, who lived in the house next door. He was a few years older than me and had permission from his parents to hang out with friends later. Sometimes, when coming home, Jason would pass through my backyard and throw stones at my bedroom window to get my attention and chat. My window faced the backyard, and I could see his house over the bushes. There was a path that connected our house to the side entrance of his, and I always knew when Jason was nearby because the light of the side door would be off when he left. One summer night, I heard a car dropping Jason off at home. It was nearly midnight, and I, about 14 years old, called out to him quietly, trying not to wake my parents. With no response, I decided to surprise him and went out to scare him. I knew the forest around well and had the skill to move silently, a common prank between us. I silently slid downstairs, exiting through the garage door into the backyard, and headed to Jason's house via the gravel path. As I approached, I noticed that Jason had already gone inside and turned off the light. I thought I saw something moving in the woods between our houses, something the size of a person, moving slowly and pausing now and then. For a moment, I thought Jason had seen me and was trying to scare me in return. But the silhouette moving was strange, not approaching directly as Jason would. After waiting in vain and losing patience, I went back inside, silently went back to my room, and resumed watching through the window. The sound of something or someone walking in the backyard made me call out to Jason again, but there was no response. Then, I heard a loud noise of something falling and groaning right below my window, a sound definitely human. We knew the area well and knew it wasn't a game. None of our neighbors would have a reason to be there at that hour, and there were no large animals in the area. I stayed there, with my nose pressed against the window screen, trying to unravel the mystery until eventually falling asleep. The next day, I questioned Jason, who swore he had gone straight to bed that night. There was no reason for him to lie, and I couldn't imagine who else could have been in our backyard at that hour. It was a time of transition in my life, having recently moved from Phoenix to a small town in Northern California called Clearwater, seeking a fresh start after the tumultuous end of a long relationship. Clearwater, with its vast forests and welcoming community, seemed like the perfect place to heal and start anew. Still adjusting to the new life and limited social circle, loneliness began to weigh on me. That's when I received a message from an old college buddy, Alex, who had settled in the same area years ago. He suggested a camping weekend around Whisper Lake, a place known for its tranquility and natural beauty. The idea of spending some time in nature, away from the painful memories of the city, was irresistible. We arrived at Whisper Lake on a sunny Friday afternoon, the car loaded with camping gear and supplies for the weekend. The spot we chose to set up camp was in a secluded clearing, surrounded by tall pine trees and with a spectacular view of the lake. The afternoon was spent pitching the tent and preparing the site, followed by a relaxing session of fishing at sunset. As night fell, we lit a campfire and settled in to enjoy a dinner of hot dogs and roasted marshmallows, sharing stories and reminiscing about old times. The night was exceptionally clear, with a starry sky that seemed hand-painted. After a few hours of conversation and laughter, the fatigue of the journey began to weigh on us, and we decided to turn in. Alex fell asleep quickly, but I, engrossed by the tranquil sounds of nature, remained awake, lost in thought. It was then that I heard something unusual, a nearly imperceptible whisper, mixed with the sound of wind through the trees. Initially, I thought it was my imagination, a product of the nighttime silence. However, the whisper persisted, growing in intensity, as if someone were calling my name from a distance. Concerned but curious, I decided to investigate. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped out of the tent, following the direction of the whispers. As I moved away from the campsite, the sound seemed to move, always one step ahead, guiding me deeper into the forest. My heart was racing, not just from fear of the unknown, but from the strange sensation of being watched. After a few minutes of pursuit, the whispers abruptly ceased, leaving me alone in the dark, confused and disoriented. It was then that I saw, in the flashlight's beam, a figure partially obscured among the trees, wearing what appeared to be an old hiking uniform. The figure remained motionless, and for a moment, our eyes met. A shiver ran down my spine as I realized that the expression on the figure's face was one of profound sadness and despair. Before I could react or speak, the figure vanished into the darkness, as if it had never been there. Trembling and with my mind in turmoil, I hurried back to the campsite, where Alex, alarmed by my sudden departure, was already searching for me. I told him what had happened, but when we returned together to the spot where I had seen the figure, we found nothing but the silent forest and darkness. Despite our search, the only evidence that someone had been there was an old brooch lying on the ground, covered in moss and dirt, with inscriptions that could barely be read due to weathering over time. Intrigued and unable to sleep, we spent the rest of the night awake, discussing the possibility of the figure being a spirit or a remnant of that place. In the vast and unforgiving Mojave Desert, with its dry terrain and extreme temperatures, the arrival of spring was a relief. It was a time of change, with the intense heat of summer giving way to milder days and cool, but bearable, nights. My name is James Carter, and I was heading to an isolated research station, focused on studying new ways to harness solar energy. This trip, which I had planned for months, seemed to be the highlight of my career, giving me the chance to contribute significantly to the understanding of renewable energy. But nature had other plans. A massive sandstorm hit the area, a rare and powerful event that completely changed the look of the desert. I ended up stuck in Las Vegas for 3 whole days, a city known for its excesses, which was quite different from the quiet and isolated desert I wanted to explore. The strong wind and sand everywhere halted flights, leaving me waiting until the weather improved. When the weather finally cleared, revealing the sun that is so important for our study, I took a small plane. The flight to the airstrip, near our research base, was full of anticipation and a little nervousness. Arriving there, I saw something incredible. The storm had covered everything with sand, changing the place in ways I never imagined. It looked like the desert had taken back that area, hiding any sign that we had been there, in a very efficient and somewhat scary way. We continued with the work until I decided to take a short break. As I wandered away from the rest of the group to get some fresh air, I was surprised by the sharp and urgent sound of the radio communicator. It was a warning about something large that was approaching rapidly. Without hesitation and without even thinking of looking back, I ran as fast as I could towards our work vehicle. That definitely didn't seem like a prank from my colleagues. Peeking cautiously through the window, what I saw left me paralyzed. A huge and shadowy figure emerged from the waves of sand stirred by the wind, an undeniable and intimidating presence in the midst of the desert landscape. This creature, blending reality with something that seemed to come out of ancient legends, fixed its gaze on us intensely and disturbingly. Its presence dominated the environment with an aura of mystery and threat, like a silent guardian of the desert vastness. We quickly tried to call our security team, which had been hastily assembled to deal with any problems. But when they finally arrived at the scene, the only evidence of the visit of that entity were deep and mysterious footprints in the sand, with no plausible explanation for their size or shape. The atmosphere of the day became even more tense after that encounter. Electronic equipment and measuring instruments began to malfunction for no apparent reason, losing signals or delivering data that was completely distorted, as if the very earth beneath our feet rejected our attempts to unravel the secrets hidden beneath its surface. As the sun set and darkness enveloped the desert, bringing forth the mysterious sounds of the night, a deep and chilling howl broke the absolute silence. Almost immediately after, we heard the frightened scream of one of our team members. He recounted, gasping and visibly shaken, that while checking one of the devices outside, he came face to face with an imposing and threatening presence, a tall figure, covered by the desert sand, standing on two legs like a human being, but exuding a vibe that was anything but human. We reported the incident, but our story was met with skepticism. The desert is full of mysteries, they said, and the mind plays tricks under the vast starry sky. However, for weeks to come, rumors persisted of a shadowy figure haunting the edges of other campsites, always at dusk, always watching. During a summer that promised more adventures than any other, I found myself working in Big Bend National Park, located on the vast and wild border between Texas and Mexico. That year was special because REI, a major outdoor equipment company, chose the park for a significant event. They wanted to showcase new products and invited photographers and nature enthusiasts to test them out in the field. My task was to help organize a campsite that met all the specific requirements for the event: an incredible view, access to running water, and total isolation. After a morning of intense searching, we managed to find the perfect location and surprisingly ended up with the afternoon free. While my colleagues chose to relax or try out the new equipment, my curiosity led me to explore a part of the park that had always intrigued me, a distant canyon marked by history and mysteries. The canyon, known to us as the Forgotten, was famous for its ancient unidentified graves, discovered during road construction in the area. Driven by curiosity and armed only with my camera, I decided to investigate this part of the park's history alone. The access was not easy, requiring knowledge of the trails and a good dose of courage to face the rugged terrain and wildlife. As I approached the canyon, I noticed something moving on the other side of the river that cut through the area. Initially, I thought it was a small animal, but as I got closer, the silhouette revealed itself to be much larger. My heart raced when I finally understood what I was seeing. A mountain lion, majestic and fierce, was there, hunting. For a moment, I felt as if I were frozen in time, observing the predator in its natural habitat. The distance between us, marked by the shallow flowing river, had never seemed so precious. The mountain lion noticed me, but after assessing the situation, decided that I was not a viable prey and moved away. This unexpected encounter with the wild was a reminder of the beauty and danger that coexist in Big Bend. After the encounter, I returned to the campsite with a new perspective on nature and myself. This event was not just an opportunity to see a mountain lion up close, but also an invitation to reflect on the vastness of wildlife and our small part in it. In the following days, as the REI event continued, I shared my adventure with the participants and colleagues, reinforcing in all of us respect for the natural environment surrounding us. The experience in the Forgotten Canyon and the encounter with the mountain lion became highlights of my life, a story to tell and a lesson about the importance of preserving these moments of encounter with the unknown. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you liked it and want to see more content like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and give the video a like. It really helps us out. And let me know in the comments what you thought, okay? Your opinion is very important for us to keep bringing you videos that you like. Until next time, stay safe out there, and remember, it will always be a pleasure to be here with you.